All right, we are back here on the podcast. Week one of a very bizarre NFL season so far in the books. With me, as always, as tradition on the podcast, to recap week one. Joe Dowley goes back. Joe, how are you?
Mike, I am doing well. Obviously a lot better than you're doing right now. So I apologize in advance.
Yeah. Just think about it. I mean, like that might have been the worst week one win of all time.
You're happy that you escape with a win. Roller coaster of emotion, I'm sure. Up and down. But there's still a part of you that wakes up now on Tuesday morning thinking, wow, our season has potentially completely changed.
It definitely completely changed regardless of what happened last night because again, we'll get to it in a minute here. I mean, four snapped into a Jet career. You might not see Aaron Rodgers ever again.
I'm at a loss of words. I really don't know how to kind of describe it. You never want to see obviously a future Hall of Fame quarterback go down like that, especially in his debut, nonetheless. And just like there was a lot of between Hard Knocks, a lot of hype, excitement around this team. People wanted to see what Rodgers could do post Green Bay, and just to see that is just it's heartbreaking. It's gut wrenching.
Yeah, and before we get into the general week one thoughts here, I'll get this diatribe out of the way here. The fact that like these teams continue to put like these multi-million-dollar investments on crappy artificial turf, especially like the NFL brilliantly scheduling both your teams back to back on a brand new turf surface. Like, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm no doctor, so I don't know what the correlation between the turf and an injury like this is. But it's obviously very apparent that there were a lot of players that were watching this game last night that reiterated that on whatever social media platform. Enough with the turf. Let's play on grass. Let's play on grass. Let's play on grass. Now, did turf play a role in this? Maybe. I'm not sure. But just whether it was turf, whether it was grass, it's just an unfortunate situation for Rodgers. It's an unfortunate situation for the Jets, who seemingly never have the luck. It's like, you know, brings you back to 99 with Vinny Testaverde all over again. You get knocked down in the AFC Championship, game one of the following season, boom, out. Like, you can't have nice things. It is all, I could only imagine. I don't know what it's like, obviously, but I can only imagine what you and so many other Jet fans are going through today, having just literally everything sucked right out of you.
Yeah. And on the build a turf point here, real quick. I mean, from what I can gather, the issue is more that like on these lower body non-contact injuries, or it's like the Achilles, where it's the ACLs. Like the problem with the turf is that like with the grass, at least if you're sliding, like there's give in the grass. Whereas like if your foot gets caught in the turf and you bend, you pop, you're done. There's nothing you can do about that. And that sort of looked like what happened there with Rodgers at the end of the play, where like his left foot like got caught in the turf, and then you see the pop when he's going down.
Again, I'm not here to play doctor at all, but one thing that I did think about right when the injury happened was when Rodgers came to New York and started practicing,
Yeah.
right? And they diagnosed him with a calf injury. Was that an early sign that something deeper wasn't right there?
Yeah.
That I don't know if the two go hand in hand, but I mean, that's the first thing that came to mind was, wow, this guy came to New York, sat out a little bit because he had a little bit of calf tightness. I mean, was that a precursor of eventually what we just saw on Monday Night Football?
Yeah, that's for sure here. And also point out the hypocrisy of the NFL too with that, because they are going to rip out the turf in all these stadiums that are hosting World Cup games. They're going to put grass in for soccer players, not for their own players.
Well, that is true. However, again, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe FIFA/World Cup is paying for that entire front. Not
Yeah.
saying that the NFL can't pay for it, but if this is something that the players are so adamant about, it's time for the players to make a stand.
Yeah, this should be something that if they feel that strongly about it, they need to argue about the next CBA. So like we're meant like we want grass fields in every field. It's a
I mean,
condition.
hey, you care this much about it? Don't go to Twitter and complain about it. Don't show up on Sunday and play, and
Yeah.
then you see how quick those fields change.
Oh yeah, that's for sure here. And let's get into some of these games here. So overall thoughts on week one, your opinion here, because obviously I think sloppy 1 o'clock window of football here, strange opener on Thursday night, the two strange like night games. This is a very bizarre week one.
Yeah, I think overall across the board it was pretty sloppy, and it's just a product of one less preseason game slash people still, these starters aren't playing in the preseason at all. and it's really carrying over into week one of the regular season. No surprise there. You mentioned the 1 o'clock games were a snooze fest. And then you had a lot more excitement in that 4 o'clock window with the Eagles, Patriots, Dolphins, Chargers. There was a lot more going on during that time. But overall, I would characterize week one as sloppy. Just you might as well call it week 4 of the preseason.
Yeah, it's the only. Yeah, we're going to be a few weeks before we get into real football here in terms of people actually playing quality football up here. But we'll go back to the Jets here because obviously that's the thing on people's mind right now. Because that was the last game played here. Monday game is very strange the way we're talking about this game. You forget the fact that they won the football game. That's very strange to think about when comparison to all the doom and gloom around this team right now.
I mean, it's the silver lining that, hey, you won. Zach Wilson came in. You didn't make Zach Wilson do too much, right? He managed the game for the most part, and you relied on that defense and an incredible run game. And Breece Hall is a stud. Okay. You got to definitely be excited that despite everything that happened, you leave week one with a win in a division that's going to be very, very competitive. Now, if you're the Jets, it's what's that next step? All right. I think you got to bring in a veteran quarterback in some capacity, right? You bring someone in and you still let Zach Wilson go out there and do it. But I don't think he has enough in him to be able to lead this team. If he did, they wouldn't be in this situation where they brought Rodgers in the first place.
Yeah, for sure here. And we'll get to the quarterback situation in a second here with them. But I mean, you liked all the other stuff. So, I mean, the defense forces 4 turnovers on Josh Allen, who seems to really get in his head when he plays the Jets here. You saw the great running game. Breece Hall showed flashes of what he had. Garrett Wilson's incredible catch here. You had the punt return for a touchdown to win in overtime here. I mean, it just makes you feel what if, like, with this roster the way it is, like, if Rodgers is there, this team could have won a Super Bowl.
I mean, listen, I don't know if they could have won a Super Bowl because obviously the season's long. Things happen as we go through it. Should they have been in the conversation? Absolutely. The other thing is, let's not jump the gun with our week one assumptions and overreactions because, as I mentioned earlier, it is only week one. I feel as if it's an extension to week 4 of the preseason in some capacity. But you look overall, I thought the defense is great. You're going to be a top 5 defense regardless, which you have a great defense that's going to keep you in games, but you need someone that's going to be able to get you to score points. I mean, look at this team last year. I thought the Jets had a really good year, but if they had a solid quarterback, it's an easy, maybe 11, 12 win team, right? I think you're in that conversation all over again if the quarterback if they don't figure something out at quarterback, or if Zach Wilson can't just manage games and play smart turnover-free football. The reality is, though, teams are going to stack the box and make Zach Wilson make plays. Like that's the reality of it. You could say just run, but I would hope defenses are a little bit smarter and say, hey, you're gonna have to throw the ball if you want to beat us.
Yeah, for sure. We saw in the play call last night that they really had not installed much that Zach Wilson was comfortable in because they were running a lot of short stuff, line of scrimmage, screens, like slants. Like you're gonna have to some point, like I know obviously like you have a lot of talent on this team, but you're gonna have to have those 1 to 3 shot plays a game to sort of loosen the defense up here and get them not putting 9 guys in the box on Hall and Cook.
And Mike, not only that, it's just the idea that last night's game, Monday night's game was a close game, so you didn't really need that big shot as long as you didn't turn the ball over and you played strong defense. You were kind of still in it, but you go down 2 or 3 touchdowns, now you have to sling the ball. You have no choice. You have to open it up. So I think the coaching staff's going to have to let Zach Wilson go out there and be what he is. And as a Jet fan, for all of the Jet fans out there, obviously your hopes and expectations are completely different right now without Rodgers. Granted, if the diagnosis is as bad as everyone assumes it is, but you only could hope for the best at this point. Get in a veteran quarterback and then go and let Zach Wilson see what you have in it. Maybe he learned something in the few months that he was with Rodgers. I don't know.
Yeah, or you hope that maybe Rodgers, while he's rehab, he's in the building, he's talking to Wilson a little bit. You have Hackett there, and you get better coaching. You get out of LaFleur. Maybe that helps too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure just because Rodgers isn't physically out there playing, he is going to obviously be around the team and helping these guys out and helping Zach out. Now it's just about Zach going out there and executing. It's at the same time. I mean, I think this Jets story is a tremendous story. Like here you are, all this hype expectation, with Rodgers coming into town, so much excitement, it gets sucked out because of the injury, and now here you are back with Zach Wilson. I mean, it's hard not to root for a guy like Zach Wilson in terms of NFL storyline after week one. It's like, could this guy turn it around? I mean, it's easy to go out there and cheer for something like that. Granted, with everything that happened.
Yeah, you go back to Hard Knocks, like they focused on him a little bit. He talked about how like he lost his confidence at the middle of last year. It wasn't fun playing football anymore. And now like he seemed like he had gotten like a little of his mojo back, like Rodgers and Hackett there, like pumping him up. So you wonder if like that positive impact is different than like what he had. And like the Jets fans, you got to hope because I mean, let's look at the quarterbacks available here on the market. I mean, you're looking at Nick Foles, Colt McCoy, Carson Wentz, pulling Matt Ryan out of CBS booth, Joe Flacco. There's not a lot of options you're going to bring in here and say, oh, I'm going to start this guy. I think you're looking for someone to come in and say, hey, like, if Zach Wilson doesn't have it one game, I'm going to go to this guy to sort of pull out the fire for me. I think that's what you're looking for in the short term.
I think the one disservice that the Jets did in the offseason was not also bringing in a second veteran quarterback in the event of something like this. I think that's the one mishap that they had a great offseason, bringing in a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. But I think the fact that now obviously it's a lot easier to talk about it now that Rodgers gets hurt on his fourth snap or third snap. But right, if you have that veteran quarterback there, you still feel a little bit comfortable. Now you got to bring someone in, have them learn that system. Not a lot to pick and choose from at this point.
Yeah, I have a theory about how this quarterback situation should play out for them. This is what I think they think their game plan is going to be. I want to bounce this off of you.
Let me hear it.
Okay, so here's what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to go sign somebody off the street. Let's say, for argument's sake, it's Nick Foles. Nick Foles comes in. He's the backup. He's going to help out Zach Wilson. If Zach Wilson is a stink bomb of a game, that they, just go to Foles, try and pull out the fire. That's part one here.
I think anything's possible at this point.
Yeah. So the second part here, I think people not thinking about as much yet here is that they are fortunate they have an early bye in week 7. If they can go like 3-3 heading into their bye at the Giants after that, I think they go look around the league and say, okay, like, is somebody willing to rent us a quarterback for the second half of the season? We go try and pull a guy who, maybe if the Vikings flop, do they consider just going for Caleb Williams, trading Kirk Cousins or Tannehill or Kyler Murray, something like that? I think they try and sniff around again at the deadline if they're in a position where they think they can still make the playoff push.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see that second scenario is a bit more complicated just because you're going to end up taking on a quarterback that's more than just a rental, and then what you have Aaron Rodgers come back to. Like, I obviously if Rodgers comes back, he's the guy. I think it's more realistic they go to that veteran route. They probably activate Tim Boyle off the practice squad and go from there.
Yeah, I think Kirk is like the one I think would be the most realistic one there at Tannehill because they're both free agents at the end of the year because they're not locked into either beyond this season if either of them is willing to move.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. It's just a matter of what are you willing to give up to bring that, Is it worth like here's the bottom line. By bringing in a quarterback like that, whether it's a Kirk or a Kyler Murray, and let's say you're at that 3-3 mark, do either of those guys make your team that much better to be able to compete for a Super Bowl, or are you just making the playoffs?
It would depend on how Zach's playing at that time also here. Because like if you're winning as quarterback, I think it's worth the shot. But like if he's doing well, they may say, like let's just stick with what we got and just ride this out.
I mean, I think it's important. You may want to stick it out with what you got because I don't think if you end up bringing a guy, and again, we're just using examples here, a guy like Kirk, a guy like Kyler, I don't think those guys are getting you. Maybe they help you get to the playoffs, but then you get in that first round, maybe that second round exit, and that's it. I mean, at this point, Zach Wilson was the second overall pick. Obviously, it didn't work out early on. I think you want to try to revisit that before having to say, all right, we got to trade and make another quarterback. Because at that point, if you're trading to bring in a veteran quarterback like a Cousins or a Murray, you're sucking any of that confidence right out of Zach Wilson at this point.
Yeah, we just need to see how these next few weeks play out for them. And I do think, again, like if they manage to snap the playoff drought this year, that's the new bar for them. I think that's a successful season considering what they had.
I mean, at this point, like I spoke to a lot of Jet fans that were like, hey, Rodgers is in town. We got to make the playoffs. Like those are the expectations. Some obviously had higher expectations. they make the playoffs with Zach Wilson, like the expectation, those are the expectations right now. Everything else is out the window.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know,
Let's
you,
go.
you got to make the postseason.
Yeah, let's go to the other side of town here for the Giants here, and your reaction to what we saw on Sunday night, because that was I think some of the worst football I've ever seen played.
All right, that it's another similar reaction to the Jets. Like, what the hell just happened? Kind of thing when Rodgers got hurt. You know, like I mean, for all your listeners that listen to the pod, I mean, I thought the Giants were poised for a great year, and here they go, 40 zip, um, in the first game. To me, that was a classic example of, not being prepared. A team that went in there super confident and just got hit in the mouth. A lot of I don't want to say a lot of concern, but that's not the way you any team wants to start a season. The offensive line looked poor. It just not what you expected for Dable and Jones after all of the excitement and success that they had in year one. It's that to me was very disappointing.
Okay, so I have a scenario here a Giant fans will not like here, but this gave me very eerie parallels to a Jets specific season. You want to hear my thought on that?
What do you got?
I remember the 2006 Jets when they got in the playoffs the first year of Mangini. He's going on the Sopranos, going, oh, like it's the man genius. Like the Jets are back here. Week one, they come out, they host the Patriots, big division rival, get smacked, and then the season's disaster. They're 1-8 at the bye, and like I could see here, like if they're not careful, this schedule early on, they could be going down a very slippery slope if they are not like able to take a step forward from last year.
I mean, anything is possible, but I mean, to be a complete no show like they were, week one against the Cowboys, it very 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 disappointing, very disappointing.
Yeah, and to build on this a little further here, I mean, that week that year they lost 38-14 at home to the Patriots week one, and then they went on to think they won in week three by 3 points, and they lost every game to the bye the Jets that year.
Yeah, I mean, time will tell if that's a similar story with the New York Giants and Daniel Jones and Dable in year two, but I don't believe that 40-0 win is what the New York Giants loss is what the New York Giants are.
All right, so let's go this way then here. On the panic meter, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you on the Giants right now after what we saw on week one?
I'm probably at like a 6. I'm probably at a 6. Like, obviously, I'm very worried. But here's the thing about post week one. It's the classic overreaction week, right? I'm not saying that the Giants are gonna win the Super Bowl or win the division, but I don't think the Giants are a 40-0 losing team and that poor of a team this season. If this was Arizona that put up 0 points, Houston that put up 0 points, okay, that makes a little bit more sense, and got completely blown out. I'd be nervous. You never want to see a season start like this, but I don't think it's full on panic mode just yet after just one game.
Yeah, I will say though, if the Giants manage to lose to Arizona on Sunday, then I think the panic meter goes like a 9 for Giants fans.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't lose to a game against the Cardinals. I know they played Washington surprisingly tough, but you can't lose that game. I mean, this is a perfect way for the Giants to go out there, come back, and kind of get the season going.
All right, let's go a little rapid fire around some of the other games here. So Chiefs Lions go in there. They beat the Chiefs without Kelsey and Chris Jones. So what was your takeaway from that game?
Well, my takeaway was I thought the Lions were going to have a setback this season, and they punched the Chiefs and me in the mouth pretty much by saying that with their Thursday night opening night victory. Again, great win for the Lions, especially on the road. A lot of excitement, a lot of juice. What's encouraging in terms of a Lions standpoint is you finish out a close game and you actually win it, right? I think last season they were on the opposite end of a lot of these games. For the Chiefs, once Kelsey gets back, they figured out a 1-year deal with Jones. I think they're gonna be just fine and be right back to that perennial AFC team that they've been for over the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney's had hands. They probably win that game anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think a concern is that who is the true number one at the wide receiver position for the Chiefs. once Kelsey comes back, he automatically becomes that guy. I think it opens up everything else for the other wide receivers.
Yeah. In terms of most alarming performances week one for me outside of the Giants here, I would say Cincinnati, what they did against the Browns looks very, very disturbing, especially considering the fact that I think if Deshaun Watson hits a few more passes, this game is in that 40-3 kind of area.
Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, I know the weather was bad. I know Joe Burrow not, 100% health wise, but I thought that was one of the bigger shocks, and really sets up for what will be one of the toughest divisions in the NFL, because I think there's a lot of talent on that side, despite, another big surprise for me, the 49ers completely demolishing the Steelers. I thought the 49ers would win that game. I didn't think they would absolutely smoke them like they did. I think the Steelers, that was definitely a surprise. But between the Steelers, um, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Browns, that's going to be a division where these teams are going to be beating each other up all year round.
And Cincinnati has Baltimore week two. That's not going to be fun for them.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, they're one of my teams that you fall at 0-2. I know Cincinnati, like you. I thought they'd be a Super Bowl team. You start 0-2 in a division like that, it's a lot of uphill climbing.
Yeah, and you brought the Steelers up here. I wanted to go to them next here because they play the 49ers. They get basically run out of their own building in this game here. And I for all the people who commented on the Instagram reel last week of like whining that I was down on the Steelers here, just know I'm keeping receipts here. I'll keep an eye on this team here and see, like, right now, it's a point for me in the column here at Pittsburgh.
No, you're not wrong whatsoever. Again, I thought they would have, with all the hype surrounding Pittsburgh, I thought they would have showed up a little bit better, and they did not. They did not. Very surprised. Very surprised.
Yeah, very surprised there. Another surprise here is that the Vikings managed to lose at home to Tampa Bay with Baker Mayfield at quarterback here in a game where Kirk Cousins threw 344 yards here and the defense played reasonably well. Like, that's not a good sign for the Vikings, who last year were the kings of one-score games.
Definitely not a good sign for the Vikings. Good for Baker going out there and getting that win for the Buccaneers. Probably one of the other bigger surprises in week one is the fact that the Vikings didn't win this game. It's a little bit, if you're a Vikings fan, a little concerning. Like, what are your expectations? This is a perfect opportunity now to potentially contend with the division. And I feel like the Vikings just, when they have gotten better, so has everybody else, and they've fallen behind in some capacity. And I think we're seeing that in week one.
Yeah, I think game of the week for sure. Week one, Dolphins Chargers. That game was wild. It shows a lot that like Tua was able to bring that team back late in the game and lead the game winning drive.
Oh, constant action. I mean, Miami's a fun team to watch, and the only thing I could say is I hope that Tua could stay healthy. He's got the weapons around him. Obviously, the connection between him and Tyreek Hill. He's got that offense is so fast, so much skill. Definitely an exciting team to watch. And now, with Rodgers out, Miami, not that they weren't in that conversation, but they go right back up into that conversation for a division that is somewhat open.
Yeah, that's for sure here. And go to the state AFC East here. New England and Philly here. Like, what should be taken from that game here? Because obviously the Eagles, I feel like, were playing with their food a little bit, in my opinion. They let New England get back in that game late. Mac Jones looked a little better with actual offensive coordinators coaching him, but like, I still am with you here. I think this could be still a long year for New England.
Yeah, I don't expect much from New England, but again, I thought it was encouraging to see the way that Mac Jones played, over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and they kept it close. I mean, they had a chance late, and that's all you could I guess that's all you could kind of wish for a team that is in no man's land, I guess you could say. Again, though, product of week one. I think you have this matchup in week 8 or week 9. It's a different Eagles team playing out there.
Yeah, that's for sure here. Let's go one more game here. One of the bigger surprises of the week one, like the Seahawks getting blown out by the Rams, who did not have Cooper Kupp.
I will say this: all these teams that ended up paying quarterbacks, I mean, it didn't look too good. It didn't look too good. I mean, you look at that Rams Seahawks game specifically, and Geno Smith, who just got a nice little pay raise. I mean, it's tough, man. And that's the thing with week one. It's really tough to kind of go out there and really break it down because of just there's so many unknown factors, so many unknown factors. I don't think you truly know how teams are going to be until you reach that like week 5, week 6 range, right? I think after week 4, post week 4, you kind of have an idea, and maybe a couple teams surprise you in a positive and negative way. But early on, I mean, it's a toss up. I mean, you look at the schedule for next week, and it's if you think about based on how the games were at week 1, I don't think there's a single game that you could look at where you're like, oh, this team is beating that team, which is crazy. But that's just how week 1 played out.
Yeah, that's for sure. You're definitely worth watching going forward here with that. And in terms of week 1 here, let's go wrap us up here. Who had the biggest win for you in week 1?
Biggest win for me in week 1. I'm going to say the 49ers. They look like the best team in football with their week 1 win.
Yeah.
I think they had a great win. Also, I think the Packers had a great win. In Jordan Love's first game. Granted, it's the Bears. I will say that it's the Bears. But there was a lot higher expectations for the Bears, and for Jordan Love to kind of come out there, for Green Bay's defense to play the way that they did, it's an encouraging start. But I can't get too excited because, as I've said in the entire podcast, it's only week 1.
Yeah, for sure. 2 more I'll throw out here is obviously I think the Browns really needed that win over the Bengals week 1 here, considering that their team with the coach under pressure, quarterbacks under pressure after a mediocre performance last year. Important for them to get that victory here. And also, I'll throw the Jets in here again here, considering what they're looking at going forward here. Big difference going forward being 1-0 as opposed to 0-1.
Absolutely. No doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind.
All right, let's go the other way here. We'll take the Giants off the table because I think it's clear that they had the worst loss of week 1 here. Who else do you think really hurt themselves week 1?
I thought the Giants had, by far and away the worst loss of the week. I think the Bengals. I think the Bengals completely not being able to do anything on the offensive side, losing 24-3. I know it's a divisional rival, but in week 1 for a team that has Super Bowl expectations, that was as bad as it gets.
Yeah, I'm going to throw the Vikings in there as well, considering that we had questions about them last year with all the 1-score wins and the defense being subpar. Losing at home to a Tampa Bay team most projected as like last place in the NFC South is not a good sign for your fortunes this season.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
All right, let's go ahead. You'll wrap up here. Obviously, we got week 2 coming up here. So 2 things to start here. Number 1, of the 0-1 teams, who can least afford to get to 0-2?
Of the 0-1 teams, I think the Cincinnati Bengals are the least that could go, least afford to go 0-2, especially with that division.
Yeah, I think the Bengals is definitely a great call here. I'm also going to put the Giants out there as well as an option here because they lose to Arizona. You look what they have coming up after that. That's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Whether it's the Giants, the Bengals, I think both there's some expectations with both those teams, different expectations. But if either of those teams start off the season 0-2, it is going to be could potentially be a long season. Now, I think the Bengals could still, in some capacity, bounce back from 0-2. But I go back to looking at that division, and the Browns are not the Browns they were before, and the Ravens will be there, and Pittsburgh will give them a run for their money, even though they didn't perform well in week 1.
Yeah, another sneaky one to watch here at the 0-2 front here. If Buffalo somehow loses at home to the Raiders, I think you will see the alarms of panic going up in Buffalo.
Yeah, I think that week 2 game is that perfect example of that bounce back game where Josh Allen goes for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns and they right the ship right away.
Yeah, for those of us still in the knockout pools, the Bills are a strong consideration for me this week.
Yeah, those knockout pools again. You look at the matchups. I don't see a single matchup outside of that, and I'll be honest, I don't even feel that comfortable having watched Josh Allen play last night, granted against a top 5 defense, but that's probably the most popular pick of the week.
I think the Cowboys are the most popular pick of the week. Everybody's going to pick against Zach Wilson.
That at home, yeah, that also has definitely a lot of potential there as well.
Yeah,
I
so
think those picks are definitely the top two picks of next week.
yeah, so let's take a look here at some of the week 2 games. I have the ESPN schedule up here. We start with Vikings Eagles Thursday night here. Your Packers are in Atlanta. There's a bunch of interesting games on the board here going down the list here. What's pops out at you from what we see in week 2?
Yeah, a couple things pop out of me. Chiefs Jags. I think that is a tremendous matchup. Good week 1 win for the Jags. How do the Chiefs bounce back? Trevor Lawrence looked really good in week 1, so can he continue throughout the season? I think that's a huge matchup, and also that divisional matchup again, another divisional matchup for the Ravens Bengals. All right, the Bengals cannot afford to go 0-2. The Ravens obviously took care of Houston in week 1. I think those are the two best matchups of week number 2 that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, a couple other sneaky ones I watch here. Seattle trying to avoid 0-2 going to Detroit. That's going to be fun. Detroit the extra rest here. What do the Jets look like with a full game of Zach Wilson against the Cowboys, who absolutely embarrassed the Giants? That's for sure here. This Monday doubleheader also is a little intriguing here because you got the NFC South game, which has a little juice with the Bryce Young trying to get his first career win at home, and Brown Steelers here, and Cleveland could really just put a hurt on Pittsburgh with a win here.
Totally. By the way, I hate the doubleheader for Monday night.
Yeah, I know. That's the creation to try and put like more games in the contract for ESPN. So I don't.
I hate the doubleheader Monday night. I rather one game Thursday night, one game Friday night, the rest on Sunday, and one Monday night game. I would love that.
It
It would
also
never
ki-
happen.
it also kills the Manning cast for a couple of weeks also because they can't have Peyton pick one game over the other one.
Correct. Correct.
All right, Joe. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. People want to follow you on social media. How can they do that?
Mike, they could give me a follow on Twitter at Joe double underscore.
Do not forget the double. You won't find him.
My man, DALOISIO. Mike, always a pleasure, buddy. Thank you.